See, the reason why a lot of Americans they're going to get left behind, a reason a lot of Americans won't succeed in this new world that is to come is because in reality, a lot of Americans are afraid to take risk, right? A lot of Americans are afraid to take risks. They're scared of the unknown. They're scared of getting uncomfortable, right? They're scared of taking that leap, right? Because unfortunately, the American government has done a good job, a great job at making us dependent, right? Dependent on governmental decisions, dependent on the 9 to 5 work, depending on the free lunch, right? Depending on everything, right? Americans have become a dependent society, so much so that we just take a step back and just let the government do whatever they want to, right? Americans have taken a step back and just we're just hoping and praying that the government is going to do what they say that they were going to do. We're just hoping and praying that when we go to war, that something good comes out of it. We're just a hoping and praying society and dependent on the very things that we act like we're not dependent on. We act like we're just such a free society. We're not free, man, right? Many Americans, most Americans are absolutely in bondage, right? You're tied to your job, you're tied to your house, right? You're tied to your location. You don't have freedom of movement, right? Despite what we've been taught, and despite what we believe, we do not have the freedom of press. We do not have the freedom of religion, as y'all can see. We do not have the freedom of speech, as you can see. And that's just what is to come, right? A lot more freedoms are going to be stripped. A lot more freedoms are going to go to the wayside, right? And this is just the beginning of, America turning into what it probably was always going to turn into anyway, right? We're at the late stages of America's deconstruction phase. We're at the late stages. And listen, folks, y'all need to pay attention because you need to snap out of that mindset of not taking risks. As you can see, I'm about to flip the camera around. I made it. I'm here in the Dominican Republic right now. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the camera around. This is where I'm at right now. This is the views, ocean view somewhere out there. But this is the risk that I took for myself. This is the risk that I took, for my family, right? It's time to leverage yourself, right? Everything that you want in this life is going to be a risk, especially if you want to reach success, especially if you want to reach the heights of your financials. You want to do things that nobody else is doing. Guess what? You're going to have to take a risk, buddy. You're gonna have to take a risk, beguile, the girl version of Buddy, right? You're gonna have to take that risk. You're gonna have to jump. But then guess what? When you jump, you're gonna have to accept that you may fail. You may have to accept that you may fail. However, a failure is not a closed door. A failure is just a lesson. You know how many times I've jumped, right? You know how many times I've jumped and almost drowned? Right? You know how many times I done jumped and parachute was malfunctioning? You know how many times I jumped? Right? But it's not about the amount of times that you failed. It's about the amount of times that you've learned from those failures and made yourself more efficient, made yourself better, made yourself stronger. Right. But now we stay in a society that doesn't teach resilience. We don't teach resilience in America. That's why all of the jobs are being shipped overseas, right? That's exactly why all of the jobs are being sent overseas, right? That is why America is losing innovation, right? Besides the top tech lords and the top oligarchs. That is why Americans have gotten weaker. That is why the American male essentially, is low test, low fight, and is not willing to take their country back. Listen, It's all a trickle down effect. And then if you want to add food, and all of the pesticides and all of the chemicals that are in your food, in your items, in the air, right? At that factory job that you work at, if you add all of this stuff together, right, you get a recipe for disaster, right? You get a bunch of zombies walking around, right, with mental illnesses, fat sloppaloposaurus, high blood pressure, diabetes, right, heart disease, organ failure. You get a bunch of people who are dealing with all of this, and of course, that's a trickle down effect because we know that the private industries, they love this. They love making money off of it. This is all streamlined from the military industrial complex to the corporation industrial complex. All of it is streamlined down to the medical industrial complex. They're not in business to make Americans healthy. The government is not in business to make sure that you get the knowledge and the wisdom and the financial literacy to what, be better than them. No, absolutely not. Right, that's not what they're there for. The medical industry is there to put a band-aid over whatever you're going through. Right, the government is there to just to make sure that the government doesn't fall apart and the citizens don't get out of line. They're not there to teach you. That's why I find it funny when people talk about having families, right? As soon as they have the child, it's almost automatic that they throw them into the public indoctrination camps, right? You mean to tell me this child, and I've seen it, because once upon a time, my daughter, we had to put her through daycare, but it was only temporarily, right? But and then she didn't go to daycare until she was one, right? She didn't go to daycare until she was 1, 2. So she stayed home practically that first year, right? But you see, when you go to daycares, you see moms fresh. You see moms fresh out, literally, probably fresh out the hospital. They're throwing newborn infants in a daycare. That is not how that is supposed to work, right? That is literally handing your child over to a factory, literally handing your child over to the public indoctrination camps. I've seen babies only weeks old in a daycare. I'm like, that's not how that's supposed to go right there, right? Children need to be with their moms for months, right? Especially based on data, especially based on the statistics, right? That's how mothers and children, infants, create that chemical bond with each other, right? That's where also breastfeeding comes into play with that as well. But if you're throwing an infant child straight into daycare, right? That infant child is trying to discover their mother. Their infant child is trying to develop, with their mother. And then people wonder why, nowadays children are growing up and feel so separate, feel so disconnected with their parents. Well, it started off as an infant, right? It started off as a child, right? You threw your child into public indoctrination camps early on, right? But then you're wondering why there's such a disconnect. You wonder why this generation of young people feel so disconnected, especially from adults and especially from their parents, right? Because y'all threw their ass straight into the water. They didn't develop that chemical bond with the brain to hold those relationships steady. See, when those chemical bonds, right, become developed, there's more of a robust relationship, right? There's a cohesiveness, within your parenting and with that child. But of course, nowadays we don't have that, and it's all been done on purpose, right? Because when a child doesn't have that bond with you, guess what they're going to have to bond with? They're going to have a bond with the public indoctrination camps. They're going to have a bond with the system, right? It's easy. It'll be easy for the government to go ahead and implement control. See, like I said, this is all a streamline effect. But until Americans wake up and see that, right, it's gonna be the same old thing, right? They're gonna be running the same old cycle, right? And just pay attention to the news. Pay attention. Listen, if you pay attention to the news, it's literally the same thing every single day. It's literally the same exact thing every single day. There is no like difference in news. What's the key things in news right now, right? We got another situation of a high profile case, of course, black and white as always, right? Another high profile case, black and white, right? Same thing every year or so. What else is on the news, right? Oh, another war. We've been at war since I've been a kid. Iraq and Afghanistan lasted over 20 to 25 years. We've been at war since I've been a small child, elementary school child, right? It is the same old thing every single time. They're running the same play every single time. But this time they're finally going to go ahead and deconstruct, right? So what else is on the news, right? Somebody got beat up, somebody got shot, right? Somebody got robbed. It's the same old news cycle, right? And you should get to the point where you're not even surprised about what's going on in the world, right? You should just be maneuvering around it. But see, most people, they get stuck inside that system of news. They get stuck inside that programming, and many people don't know how to get out of it. They're not understanding that this is just the same old play. They're not understanding this is the same old matrix. They're not understanding that this is the same old playbook that the elites have been running probably since the beginning of time, right? But then when you put yourself in the mind of an elite, you get a bird's eye view of what's actually going on, right? A lot of people like, oh, F the elites, and yeah, I get it. I get it. But then again, you want to learn your enemy, right? Then again, you want to learn the play-by-play book of the opposing team, right? You don't just say F it. You don't strategize. You don't, evaluate. You don't take a bird's eye view. Nah, that's how you get socked upside the head, right? But me, I put myself in the mindset of an elite. How would I control this? Right? What would I do in this situation? Right? And 9 times out of 10, I probably come to the same conclusions, right? Surprisingly so, of the elites. So man, I made this video just to let y'all know, your boy did get to the Dominican Republic, right? I will still have to get some administrative stuff done. I still have a car back in the US that I got to do something with. So I do have to still go back and handle that situation. But besides that, we in here, made it. Let's see. Can I show y'all a little bit of what's going on in here? Just a little bit of what's going on in here. Probably do another episode, about the property or whatever. So here's a little some nice property and everything. And the kitchen is back there in the back. Gas stove and all that stuff. It's a little bit dark back there. No lighting and all that. But yeah, man. So the message is, if you want to put yourself in a prime position, take that risk. If you want to put yourself in a better financial position, guess what? You're going to have to take that risk. Nobody's going to do it for you, right? Daddy government's not going to do it for you. Daddy Trump is not going to do it for you. Sleepy Joe ain't going to do it for you. Kamala ain't going to do it for you. None of those old bastards who are in Congress right now are going to do it for you. Your mama ain't going to do it for you. Your daddy ain't going to do it for you. So it's time to stop being dependent on that system that you were raised under and start creating independence under your own sovereignty, not a new system, your own sovereignty, which you will be creating a system within that sovereignty. So it's time for y'all to wake up. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time zone you're watching this video in. And let's get to it. Let's build. And welcome to the new world, baby. I built a life. I built a family. I worked my hands raw to get here. And I'm not done. This is the escape blueprint. PFP life. A way out of the grind and into control. You'll learn how I stack cash, build systems, and reclaim time so you can live on your own terms. You will watch me maneuver and grind towards the life that I achieve for myself, and you can also do the same. Join the circle, join the Patreon, learn the steps, and protect your
freedom. The Escape Blueprint. PFP Life.